So I've totally broken this kit to some cool stuff. I like to call it something else. Yes. So, hi, welcome to a new video. My name is John Skippy Limcool. This is part 2 of SuperMacho drums. We're going to look at this really spiffy interface and why I think it's the fastest, coolest, most kick-butt way of editing drum samples on the planet. I've covered these in the Mega Macho Drums videos from 2-3 years ago, but we're doing it again because it's a new SuperMacho Drums library with new kits. First video covers the installation, the differences between Super and Mega Macho drums, all that stuff. If you're having installation problems, watch that first video. This is going to assume that at this point you have Quickload and you have set up Quickload for the drum kits so that they load up like this and they show up all nicely. All you have to do if you don't have this working is go to wherever the library is, and let's go over here and say go away. And you double click until you get to this folder here where you see the samples part 1, part 2, MIDI files. This folder contains 2 folders that have all the drum kits in it. I want this to be dragged over here to, and to get this to work, you just right click or control click right here to open up the control. This is called the Quickload page. Click and drag right there. It'll take it a second. There's a space at the beginning of the name so it shows up at the top of the list. And once you've done that, now it shows up in your Quickload, so it's really easy to say I want a trap kit, and now off you go. Okay, so I'm going to assume everybody that's watching this video with me has this working this way to this point. So I'm going to hit that button, which makes the whole interface go away. See, isn't that cool? And now we can just play with it on its interface basis. And what we're going to look at is a couple of things. We're going to look at the kits. Let's say we start with, let's just say a hip-hop kit. Why not? So, old school, man. Okay. Let's talk about the layout and what's cool about SuperMacho drums that I think has a leg up on everybody else when it comes to drums. The main thing being that I'm going to pop up the screen right here to show you the key layout. I did a layout similar to this 20 years ago when I started making drum kits for the Korg workstations. General MIDI was just coming into action, and General MIDI is basically a kick on one note that's always the same, a snare, hi-hats being F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. So I have, starting right here, the General MIDI map. There's a tambourine on F sharp, there's shakers, stuff up here, there's bongos. Supposed to be congas here. I'm breaking some rules because I don't want it to, you don't use those all the time for that stuff. And then triangles, another shaker. And then down below that, in this octave below, are 2, 3, 4, 5 kicks, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 snares before I get to these 2 kicks, side stick, snare, clap, another snare, then these are all toms. Usually more than one set of toms. So that layout is followed by most everybody pretty religiously that says kits. So if you have a groove going, and so many of these drum things, you go to another groove, another kit or something, and it's a completely different note layout. But here, wherever I go, if I say dubstep, I'm ready to go. You know, it's set up that way. So that's part 1. All of these sounds across the keyboard are set, 61 of them, to be ready to be used. Now let's look at this interface. So first of all, there's 2 buttons. This play mode area is critical and important. Global means that whatever you change parameter-wise that you see in front of you on these different screens, if you turn on, there's little lights to turn on and off each of these 6 effects that you can click these tabs and see the parameters for. Global means it's going to apply that to everything. So if I go to lo-fi and I turn it on, I just turned lo-fi on all 61 samples. But if I go to drums and I just play, see how this shows you the sample? Whatever I play, that's now in the edit buffer to be changed. So if I turn on lo-fi and I choose what I want it to be setting wise, and I want this also to have, say, the punch, it's only done it to that sound. Everybody around it's clean. I could go to this kick drum, say, give me reverb. And then I have all these other kicks around it, so I could use that just for a color hit every now and then. So good. So that makes it really lightning fast to change all of these different parameters by going either global and you're changing everything, or just go drum, choose the one you want to play and change. On top of this is the note lock button. This is critical and it's really powerful because, especially for the kick drum is really hard to get right for your mix sometimes. You're doing this big dance track, there's all this crazy stuff going on. Go to the kick drum that you're using for your song and then lock it. And now you can play your whole song. And this no longer, if note lock is off, watch, this is gonna go flying all over the place, right? But if I go over here and I say, what's my kick drum? There it is. Okay, so that's the E. So if I go to E and I lock it, now I can play this groove. And I can go to this one kick and I could say pitch. I could turn on the compressor. Go to EQ. I can tailor that one drum while the whole groove is playing and just work on it and sculpt it. Maybe I want to have a pitchy G. I want it to be darker, so you bring down this and bring up the filter. There. So note lock allows you to lock this puppy down so you can work with it while it doesn't change to any other sounds, so you can be focused just on that one sound, the snare, this kick, whatever you want. So that is really handy for these 3 controls are really critical for that. The last control over here is called solo transpose. And what this does is if you're on any of these and you play, say the crash, if I hit solo transpose, it immediately takes that sample, makes all the other samples, all 61, go away, and this kit is now just one sound. So if I wanted it to be, say, this, I could say solo transpose. For trap kick drums, anything you need to do, it makes this now a single sound. So the rest of the kit is gone. So at that point, you would then probably want to get your interface back and go to another kit, Quickload, and go down here to this space, and you click and drag right here, and that makes a second kit on MIDI channel 2. And then you go to your sequencer and you set it up so that you have another track talking to MIDI channel 2 to play the other parts that you want to have. Because this guy, because solo transpose is on, he just became a one sound plugin instead of a drum kit. But there's times where you want to do that, so we decided to do that in the interface, which is really cool. Okay, so those are your 3 modes: global, drum, or solo transpose. Okay. Okay. So what we have for the interface, all of these things you see in front of you can be modified per sound. All 61 samples can have completely different settings of volume, pan, pitch, filtering, distortion, lo-fi, the glitch, which we'll talk about when we get to it in a minute, compressor, the transient punch designer, and 3-band EQ. There's an amp, there's a filter, and there's a pitch EG with intensities right here for the pitch and for the filter. There's velocity controls. If these velocity controls are maxed up, then the filter won't go all the way down because this is covering the full spectrum by velocity. So you'd bring this down. If you don't want any velocity sensitivity to the amp, bring this down. Decay, if this is maxed up and you have it set right, you can have it set so when you play soft and have amp. Now the volume doesn't change, but the decay does. I can turn off. So now filter doesn't change at all, only decay by velocity. So these are your velocity controls right here for amp, filter, and decay. Okay. The filter, you have a high pass or a low pass filter. And again, let's go to global and bring this down and bring this up and bring this up and bring this up. So now I can use this to get full frequency. Like I said, if this filter is all the way up for velocity, it'll get some darker when it's all the way at 0. But velocity is letting it jump way back up there. Just bring down this knob and it's totally down. Okay? So you have 2 filters. And if you want, you can click the wrench and go over here to this. This is the filter right here. There's a high pass filter and there's a low pass filter. You can delete this and then add and go to the filters, and there's all of these different types of low pass filter types that have different sounds, or make it be a different type of a low pass or an effect even if you want. But if you wanted it to be a different type of a filter, maybe the daft low pass filter, you can make this go away and now it's the daft filter. Okay? So that's very cool. Or the high pass filter. So we're on global, so we're doing it to everybody. So if you want to cut it to a certain frequency stop, versus, you can do that. So it's selectable low pass or high pass for every one of the 61 notes. Okay, say low pass. Okay, resonance. Here's your output control. This depends on the configuration of right here. Got to go to the full screen and you go to outputs. Here's where you set up and you can hit add to add additional outputs. But I created 8 different stereo ones. And what this means is this. Inside of Logic, if I have this set up, I have to first of all go over here and click and change this from stereo to multi-output. And they have different multi-output configurations. If I don't do that, then all this work to get the multi-outputs doesn't do anything. And then you have to go over here and you hit X to get to your mixer. And this right here is contact 5, right? So if I click right here, I've added an extra channel of contact 3, 4. So that means that I can go over here to this kick drum. And if I have this set to drum, I could say out stereo 2. And now this shows up here while everybody else shows up on 1 and 2. So I can send sounds to individual outputs just by doing that. And you'll notice there's a stereo 1, stereo 2. Now stereo 1 makes it stay on the stereo channel here, but it bypasses a limiter effect chain that I set up over here that you could add to. If you wanted to, you could go here to effects and say a a cabinet and get the setting to be a certain way. And when I go up here, instead of stereo 1, I say limiter. And now it's using this special chain that's found under the insert effects that can be up to all these effects. You could add reverb to this. You could say I wanted it to be just reverb. Okay. Now it's really easy since I've done that. Go back to this interface, say global, till everybody be stereo. So now it's in the stereo chain without going through that crazy effect chain. And then go to drum. Just have the snare. And maybe I want this hi-hat to go through the reverb. So you can custom tailor. It's a special effect chain. I just put a limiter on it and have everything go. It kind of glues everything together in a cool way that I liked. But you can make this chain considerably larger if you want. And it works. And then you can define what goes through it by global. Say everything to stereo 1. And now nothing is going to that chain. And then choose what you want by going to drums. Say, let's have this go through that chain. Have this go through that chain. Have this go through that chain. And I want my kick to go to output stereo 2. And now it's over here on its own channel, so I can have it send to a bus, to have it trigger, to play the whole glue, side chain effect, compressing, all that kind of stuff is really easy to set up. But it all hinges on your outputs. You have to make sure that your outputs are set up appropriately and saved so that each time you call up contact, these outputs show up, okay? So that's how the output section works. Very handy, very powerful, and all that kind of stuff. So let's have this go back to the simplified interface and make the quick load go away. Okay. You can go back over here. Just keep it simple. In the middle, well, here, let's talk about the EGs first. So you have an amp EG, which has a hold parameter, which is different than the other two EGs. So that you could take, say, a hi-hat like this, right? And it's on drums. You can have it decay to be really short, but have hold. Have it open for a second. A lot of dance music is like the samples that were truncated short. You can simulate that kind of a thing like that. And if you decay is the smoothest to 0 from whatever the hold point time is. So the hold is going to hold it for this amount of time, and then the decay is going to determine how smoothly it goes to silence. The shorter, the more abrupt. The longer this is, the smoother it is. Release is when you take your hand off the key. So the decay parameter and the release parameter can be two different actual settings depending on how you play it. So you can be playing it one way, play it like really short, and the release will be triggering for the release. And then when you hold down a note, it forces it to use the shape of this decay. So you could have this be long and this be short. So you could be playing. Just by holding down longer, it now has to follow the rules of whatever your decay is. So there's some cool tricks you can do with these envelope settings and with the hold to get it to be more flexible. The filter, you won't notice if it's bright. That's kind of how it works. So if this is at 100%, let's get global. If this is at 100% and this is 100%, when I go up here and bring up my filter intensity and I do this really cool, its sustain is at 0. It should be snappy, like really cool snappy. If I bring this down, I'll start to hear a little bit of it. But it's nowhere close to what it could be if I bring this velocity setting down. And now I have that full range to play with. And in order to get snappy to really be heard, you might want to emphasize the peak and bring up the sustain a little bit. And you'll find eventually the sweet spot. So I just did that envelope to everything. But watch, I could go to drum, turn it off for the kick and snare. and go to the snare. Let's go to tone verb, have it be reverb. That's the power of this interface, is it's just so fast to do stuff like that. So the envelopes are really great. If you want something to stick out in the mix, the pitch EG is your friend. You definitely want to play with it. So let's go global, make sure everything's bright. Again, let's say global, so it does it to everything. But this will bring up the intensity. Here's your sustain, so you can have it be kind of short and snappy. Hear that snap? That's because of the pitch EG. If I turn this off, you can do really great things with the pitch EG. And it will go inverted as well, so you can do that kind of stuff. And again, these settings can be different for every drum. So I could have the crash cymbal be like that, and I could have my drums be snappy. In different ways. Just like that. It's so easy to mix up and mess up. So the pitch EG is really handy for all that kind of mayhem. So go global. Let's turn this back off. In fact, here we'll just go back to the kit the way it calls itself up. Now let's get to the effects section. This is really where some of the fun creative stuff is at. So let's go over here and turn, oh wait, we want to be global. Turn it on. Distortion has some cool settings for the low frequency. And then if you want, say global, turn it off, go to just the drums, turn on just for the kick. And that can be one sound, and then have this tune down, have the filter down. So it's just the body. So again, it's super powerful. I'm a sales guy, so I'm going to be showing you how powerful this is the whole time we do this. Okay, distortion. Let's keep it on global. Lo-fi is both bit, rate, and noise. And then the color of the noise. So the noise kind of hangs around, whereas without it, it just goes away quickly. Coolest lo-fi, man. It's so cool. All right, glitch. I love glitch to death. Glitch is actually a MIDI note repeater. And you turn on glitch, you can determine how many repeats you want it to be. Let's say 3. Here's your rate. And there's a timing. Oh, I should point out, this little box right here is really important. As you can see, it's always showing information. So I'm just playing one note. And it's repeating 3 times. If these settings are really sensitive, like really high, the feedback, that's no feedback, and here's, it will go lower in velocity, so as each repeat is softer, so the decay, the filtering, the volume gets softer. Hear that? Whereas this way, there's none. It's the same every time. Okay? Tune. Tune is really cool. So I have it at 0, so it's, if you do this to any value, it transposes that sound up It doesn't transpose different notes up the keyboard. It doesn't go. It's actually the actual sample, which is so cool. So if you make this be more repeats, let's say 10 repeats, you make it really fast. So it's quickly repeating 11 at 64th note triplets for every sample. So again, the ability to have this off, but just go over to drum and have the snare on and the congas on, and one conga panned over here and tuned over here, and this one tuned up here and over there. I mean, it's so fast and crazy to have crazy stuff happening like that. Awesome. So that's glitch. Glitch is a MIDI note repeater. Setting it to eighth notes or quarter notes is really cool for chill. Turn it on and again, set it to drum. You could have each one of these repeating one tom going up in pitch, one going down. And have it not repeat for the kick drum and not for the snare, and the snares through reverb. It's just insane. Really, really fun. All right, so that's glitch. Global, glitch off. Reverb off for the moment. Bottom row, there's 3 more effects. We're only halfway through the effects, people. Compressor. This is really nice. The bus compressor, that's a $99 plugin. The higher this is, the less of effect. As you bring this down, the more it's going to clamp, and that's based on your attack. So you could play this. And you hear a big difference. So that can tighten things up. These are really for shaping the sounds, is what the compressor and punch are for. This is a transient designer. You have the ability, turn this on. Listen carefully. You could hear distortion, so to control your input, bring it down a little bit if there's distortion. You can play between this and your volume here. So you can control the attack, more attack, like insane attack, or no attack, make it soft. Which is really cool. Sustain, you can suck out the body or you can bloat the body. So all the way out, or so you could have more impact and less. Hear the difference? That's a big difference in the mix. When you're working with a kick drum and it's driving away in your song and driving it, you want to have control of punch. Punch is a very powerful tool to have. So that's there. The 3-band EQ, you could turn this on, and we could, here, let's play this a little bit slower maybe. I'm tired of it. So you could EQ really. And it's nice EQ. It's very smooth. Okay, that's doing the whole thing. But now you could play around with it and say, go drums and add this. So you have control of these EQ settings, again, for every one of the 60-note drum sounds. So again, The power is just off the hook. Okay? Let me call back up the normal drum kit now that we've gone through the effects. So you have EQ, punch, and compressor, which are your sound shaping tools, and then distortion, lo-fi, and glitch, which are more your sound design manipulating, fun, creative tools to play with. Then we get down here to this section, which has the delay, tone verb, and ambiverb. Delay is a stereo delay, and you bring up this top slider. Let's just go global. You have feedback, you have the width if you want it mono or stereo, and the damp, no damping or a lot. Okay. Okay, so you have a nice delay. Tone verb is, these are both convolution reverbs. Tone verb is designed more for cool sound design, tricky stuff. So for example, if I have my volume down and tone verb all the way up, and I have this set to the amp distortions, and then I can bring this, if I want a little of the original so I can get that really cool side. Here's without it. Okay? So at the beginning of these distortions, which are designed for this 100% thing where you have the actual volume down, and you use these. Then you get to the, below that are hits, reverbs, special effects. I think there's even some, yeah, and then synths, special effects and synths. So what these work as is you'll want to have this up and this about maybe 30%. You have hits. It's an orchestra hit as a convolution effect. It's really cool. There's other ones. And by combining all the different settings up here and the volumes on a drum level, you can get each drum to speak that band hit really well if you want. Say global. This is these settings right here. This is global, so everybody goes through the same thing. Booms, and you can use the high pass filtering to limit how much boom because it's rather huge. The IR size will let it actually take the convolution reverb and multiply it to be a bigger size space or smaller. It's very crazy method. So low pass and then pre-delay. Okay. And then ambiverb is more traditional reverbs. Oh wait, we didn't get through all the other stuff. It's like, wait, there's more to show you. So we have these all open like they're supposed to be. There's also reverbs in here, but they're kind of unique in sound. Some normal ones. I want to have a couple normal ones, but serious low end on some of these. Vintage springs. Okay. Down below that, you get to the special effects. These noise shots are cool. What else is there here? There's Slinky Down. There's Resi Pew Pew Room. Here's without it. So, some crazy. Okay, and then you get to the synth stuff, and these are like, everything triggers that chord. It's really cool. So by itself, it can be the heart of a song, you know. And I have the key at the end of the name so you know what key, bass. Okay, so all sorts of fun experimental stuff to play. In the tone verb, so it's tone affecting. Ambiverb is more different, just traditional reverbs. There's one that has delays in it. And I should point out, if you go over here to, is it the send effects? The first one is the tone verb, right here. Let's see, make the outputs go away. So this is that, and then here is your ambiverb. And if you go over here to the presets, you can go to the factory to all of their presets. You could say these are digital reverbs from all sorts of, you know, Lexicon 480 type things. So you could go here and say 7-second plate. So you have all of these reverbs by going to the preset right here. Yeah. And there's all cool sorts of weird stuff, special effects, household. If you say modulation, reversers, or stuff like that, these are like and you'll find certain sounds work really well with these types of sounds. That's why it's cool to be able to go back to drum. Let's do this. Let's say off, and then go to drum, and so I have reverb affecting just those 3 or 4 samples. That's what the global drum, coolest system on the planet. It's very fast. So you have the delay, you have tone verb, you have ambiverb. At any time, if you want, you can click in here and go to the send effects, and here's your tone verb effect, and here's your ambiverb effect, okay? And here's your 2 delays depending on whether you have it set to, if you go to the delays, there's a button to sync it to MIDI clock. So now your time, as you can see up here, it's a division value for clock. Shorter is a division of 16th notes, so this is. But if you turn this off, it's just now milliseconds, so you can see. Okay? So that's the interface. That gives you so many cool toys. You've got 9 different effects. You've got distortion, lo-fi, glitch, compressor, transient designer, EQ, digital delay, tone verb, and ambiverb per sound, different amounts of settings. It's insane. So that is this page. There's one more page to play with, and it's really a cool page, and that's the MIDI groove page. This was an update that I did after Mega Macho Drums came out. I wanted to incorporate a groove player, and I talked with Aaron, and we worked really hard to come up with all these tools in this interface. And basically what this does that's really cool, a lot of people can't program drums, and I've done it all my life, it seems. And I love drums, and I play drum sets, and it's just natural to me, and a lot of people it's not. And so having this built in was a really nice thing. I've gotten so many notes from people that they love this part of it. So let me show you. Based on putting the MIDI files into the correct location, which is shown in the first video, okay? Make sure you've done that. Then when you come over here to the groove player, it's under the single instruments. You have all these different genres to choose from, and double click and hit play. Okay. Now, so by double clicking, that's how you load. Double click. There's names in here that you should be aware of from time to time. I like to do things where I would make sometimes on some of these. Let's see, where do I have one? Here's where I have full mixes. Sometimes there's ones that have a small mix. Here's like Monster. Here's one without snare. No kick. And then the full mix. Variations and so forth, right? Okay. Now, if you hit auto, what this means is when you go to your sequencer and you hit play, it follows. And whatever your tempo is, it will follow. And if you stop your sequencer, it will stop. It's terribly handy just to do that, and off you go. You're done. Now you can start writing a song just by choosing a groove, hitting play over here with auto on. Off you go. Now, if you want, there's other tools here to do some really fun things. This MIDI file to DAW, if you click and drag, it will let you take this MIDI file and create it into your sequencer. If you do that, make sure you turn off auto so that it doesn't double and play along like it just did right there. Okay? And then at this point, you can go to the editor page, global, shape the sound, do whatever you want editing wise to it. It's ready to go. So you can go to the sound page and edit away. There's other settings here you can do though. Like for example, see how this shows the note data has dynamics in it, right? Let's delete that for a moment. If you go over here and play it, and you bring up the velocity, so it's red. Oh, auto's off. Okay, make sure auto is on so it starts and stops. But by bringing the velocity up, it's disregarded the velocity settings that were saved in the MIDI file. And now when I drag over here, and I say no, you'll see they're all red. Or if I go the other direction, make it all soft, and I drag a MIDI file over here, right here, come here please, no, it's all purple. So you have interactive control of the MIDI file before you import it into your sequencer if you want, which is really cool. I was blown away when I saw that we could do that. And it's like, we can do that? It's like, yeah, I can do it. So if you want it to be, you can determine how you want it to be velocity-wise before you bring it in. Also, you have these controls here. These are window controls. You have half time, double time. So if it's playing, dubstep, boom, right there. Double time. Okay. Maybe you don't want the kick, so bring up the bottom part of the keyboard. Now if I drag the MIDI file in, and I go over here and say no, there's no longer a kick drum. It stops. Well, actually, the MIDI file still has the notes here, but you don't hear it. This is an actual, I found this out too. This is very cool. Even if you're playing MIDI note data that you've sequenced and programmed and stuff, you can come to this page and limit range the drum kit that's being played from the sequencer without needing to worry about MIDI files and stuff. So this is a high note, low note limiting of what it will listen to for the drum kit, no matter how you play it, even from the keyboard. If I go over here and set this so it's just a little range of the keyboard, it plays these, but if I play up here, there's no sound until I go up here. So you can limit the range of the keyboard right here for the drum kit, so it only plays in the range you want it to play. Just for the kick drum, just for the snare, just for the high-end stuff, whatever that might be that you want to be. And finally, what's really cool with this is you can hit play, next, to go through them. Let's say we like that. Okay, so click and drag the MIDI file and say no. So now it plays from the sequencer. Since the MIDI data is now in my sequencer, I can now do something really fun, and that is, I call it like surf safaring or safaring away. Go to the drum kits, go to the quick editor and say trap, and say, yes, we want to reload new kits, and hit play. Basement. Try any kit. It's going to change it. Go to Mega Macho kits. Say I like this, but I don't like that following thing. So I have to find out. Where is it? There it is. So go to the groove player, top note for the top range. There, it's gone. Where is it? There it is. So now I can play this. And I don't have that falling sound anymore. So as you can see, it's really flexible for the note range to cut off, to be able to load up a MIDI file and then go surfing through all the kits is great loads of fun. Go to Vintage King. This is all just analog drums from all sorts of drum machines. Okay, so that's the power of the interface. You have a MIDI file player built in. You can drag the MIDI files into your sequencer. You can limit the range of the bottom and the top notes. You can have it play double time or half time, as long as it's a MIDI file still in here. Once you've clicked here and you've dragged it over to be a MIDI file, it's not going to pay attention to your half time, double time buttons anymore. Velocity control, next, and so forth, so you can. And if you ever decide to start editing on the sounds, you can go over here to the editor and there's start and stop and next buttons right here. And it tells you the name of the groove here. So you can be editing the sounds. Right while here with the groove player playing. So it's fun. There's so much to do and play with sound and rhythm and groove. That's what it's for. So that concludes this video, I think. That's a lot of information. So hope you're all together there and that makes sense to you. So enjoy, have fun with these sounds, have fun with this interface. And the next video, we're going to look at the kits. So see you in a little bit.